Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to World at War Comics. My next special guest is Mr. Dan Waters. Dan, thank you for joining me today. Comic book creator, writer extraordinaire, man. Congratulations for jumping on Nightwing. You're taking over, a 4-year run from Tom, which I don't know how you feel about that. I think it's been a fairly popular run for Tom, and but we're really
Yeah,
excited to have a little bit of change, right?
yeah, thank you. I mean, yes, it's been very cool sort of taking that over. New York Comic Con was this weekend, and I got to meet and spend a bit of time with Bruno Redondo, who drew the majority of Tom's run, and have a sort of passing of the torch kind of moment, which was very nice. But yeah, I think it's that sort of thing of this the character should be able to. He's very robust, very sort of. Uh, has so much history already that you can tell different kinds of stories with him. Yeah, we've got to kind of take it and make it our own because their run was so good at what it did and so successful. Won every Eisner at you know crossed paths with. So yeah, we're taking it our own direction, doing a different thing, just because there's no point in doing a watered down version of that.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's really awesome, man. So the first arc, it's called On with the Show. Part one is Curtain Up. I was able to get my hands on
Mhm.
that first issue, and we certainly don't want to give anything away or spoilers. You'll be able to pick that up tomorrow in your comic book shops. It should be in your pull list. But man, action-packed first issue. Congratulations. The art is a chef's kiss. Everything about it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I'm super pleased with it. We have an incredible team working on it. Dexter Soy, Veronica Gandini, um, Wes, who covered the previous run, stuck around to give it a bit of continuity. Uh, yeah, it's a lot of action, a lot of new faces, and a lot of new sort of status quo establishing itself in Bloodhaven.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, it was a lot of fun. Like I said, I don't want to give too much away. It was a lot of fun, but I would love, Dan, to kind of go back in time if that's okay, just for fans that maybe don't know your history. But at what point in your life, man, did storytelling become something that you enjoyed? And was there someone in your life or around your life that kind of encouraged that?
Yeah, I mean, I was a bookwormy kid. I was always sort of had my nose in a book at sort of anytime I could like find a book, I'd end up sat there reading it and sort of drove my parents crazy at family functions and kind of things because I'd be sat there reading like Stephen King at a funeral or whatever. And it's like that's not appropriate. No one's talking to me. I'm eight. Um, so that's always been something that has been kind of my thing, I guess. But then wanting to do it came a little, or even seeing that as like a feasible thing came later. But my mom's a English teacher, so and even before she was always a big reader. So I grew up in a household, with books kind of everywhere, and would sort of just go into her office and steal copies of Dracula and Frankenstein off her shelves. So that's how I kind of found the things I liked.
Yeah, yeah. I think horror, right, so far is the genre that you kind of lean to.
I think horror was kind of my entry into uh geek nerd spaces
Yeah.
before it was superheroes and anything like that. Horror was the thing that I liked and could talk about until I was blue in the face, and Hammer horror and everything from sort of gothic literature to Hammer horror to modern horrible gore stuff.
Well, jumping into comics, what was your first kind of break into comic books? How long ago was it, and what was your first title that you worked on? I read, I think it was Limbo was one of your first
Mm,
titles, but
that's it.
did
Yeah.
you do anything before that?
Nothing that like I owned or created. There was a few sort of indie things that I'd sort of touched, but Casper Wingard and I created Limbo from whole cloth and took that to Thought Bubble, which is a fantastic comics Comic Con in the UK, uh, and we took that along a year that uh, Image were there, so we were able to kind of pitch it in person. And so we got our first book picked up by Image, and then had no idea what we were doing, and sort of spent a year in terror making this book. But that was 2015 at this
Yeah.
point, so it's all snuck up very very quickly. I was still in college when we were doing that, uh, or at least in post grad. So I know that some people saying like, "Oh, this guy's doing Nightwing and his own Batman book and whatever," and he's come from nowhere. And it's like I've been here almost a decade, like making books.
Yeah, I think so. When I went back and started looking at all the things that you worked on, Dan, you've touched a lot just with Marvel and DC, plus some of the creator-owned stuff. So yeah, you definitely this isn't like your first run. They're not putting someone new on Nightwing. You've got a pretty good track record with a lot. I mean, Detective Comics. I know you've worked with Ram V, and you've had what
Yeah,
15 off and on about 15 or 16 different issues that you've done yourself, right? If not more.
of for
Detective
DC,
Comics for DC. I
the tech,
didn't. Wasn't there a run that
the
you
tech,
did where he stepped out? Maybe.
that was two issues.
Oh,
That
two
was the
issues.
night I took over for the Night Terrors event,
That's right.
and
Yeah.
got to do a really nasty sort of Tetsuo the Iron Man, Jim Gordon story with Riccardo Federici. But then I've been doing the backups. I spent almost 2 years doing the backups on that,
Yeah.
which were
Yeah.
really fun because Ram and I were working together on other stuff. We were doing Creature from the Black Lagoon. We were doing the One
Yeah.
Hand and the Six Fingers. He's one of my closest friends in or out of comics anyway, regardless. Uh, and so that was a really cool gig, and that he was doing this big grand opera thing, and then once a month I'd just call him up and go like, all right, like who do you want me to write about this month? He'd go like, oh, maybe like Mr. Free story would be good, or sometimes he'd be like, oh, I don't know, what do you want to do? And I'd say, well, Azrael or Ten Eyed Man or one of my little freaks that I've been writing.
Yeah.
Uh, but then so I'd just take a day once a month, and just write like an 8 page story in Gotham, like whatever was kind of in my head at the time. So that was a really cool, like nice little gig there.
Yeah. That's what I read. Is I think you did. I had it written down, but yeah, there was quite a few issues where you did the backup. I think from
Yeah,
1071 to 1083. I think is the issues that I saw where you did a lot of backup for Detective and working with Ram. So I assume that you and Ram are pretty close, which
yeah.
is pretty awesome. I mean, Ram's an awesome creator writer himself, so that's pretty
Mhm.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, we sort of came up together. He's someone else I know through Thought Bubble.
Oh, okay.
This festival is yeah. Ryan O'Sullivan introduced us, and and I introduced him to Alex Packnerdale, and that's kind of the four of us are, we call ourselves a studio. We're located all over the place now. So there's no physical studio, but there's like four writers who are, we knew from the beginning that we had similar goals and stylistic influences and things. So we sort of you know cordoned ourselves off a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I could tell you, once Destro came, right, and what Skybound is doing with the Energon universe, when you look at comics as a whole, I'm not sure there's anything bigger right now. Ghost Machine is making a lot of noise with everything that Jeff Johns, that entire team's doing. Mad Cave is like producing a lot of really cool stuff, but man, Skybound has exploded. And they were awesome before, but man, GI Joe in the U.S., as you know, is I mean, I grew up on GI Joe. So man, all those titles have been incredible. And then you had this 5 issue run on Destro, which is crucial to where we're going with GI Joe 1, which comes out very soon with Joshua Williamson. Can you kind of talk about Destro? I read an article where I think Action Man is kind of the UK version of GI Joe, if
Mm-hmm.
I'm not mistaken. But you didn't grow up with GI Joe, right? That wasn't that big
Yeah,
in the
no, not
UK.
so. Yeah, not at all. It wasn't. the action figures weren't sold like to children. It was Action Man, which was it was originally repackaged as Action Force, I think, but that was before my time, and that's where you still sort of had the trappings of GI Joe. It was still kind of the same characters renamed and repurposed. But by the time it came to my generation in the sort of 90s, it had become it was Action Man rather than Action Force, and I'm assuming Action Man started out as Duke, but I'm not even sure of that. Don't quote me on that. Um, but it was sort of a thinly veiled James Bond ripoff.
Yeah.
He had a sort of scar down his cheek and a pair of rollerblades and a machine gun, and he was fighting, I think, Doctor X, who was sort of somewhere between Robotnik and uh, Mindbender.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it was a totally different thing, and it also wasn't. It didn't really have like cartoons or anything like that.
Mm.
It was just a toy. So I had to come into GI Joe very very fresh,
Yeah.
and sort of do my homework. But it was a cool thing to get to do because the Amazon universe is a kind of ground up
Mhm.
uh, thing being built. So there was sort of room to explore and reinvent without wanting to, you don't want to reinvent the sort of wheel because that's not the job, but to be able to sort of repurpose things for a more modern era and put a little more edge in it and tie it a little more to the real world.
Yeah. So, what did that background work look like leading up to Destro? I mean, were you thumbing through some old Larry Hama GI Joe stuff to kind of get a feel for who Destro was and the twins, Zammot, and what did that look
Yeah,
like?
I got sent a couple of PDFs which were sort of big enough to crash my computer. Uh, of all of that stuff, and went back and watched particularly the sort of key Destro episodes of the animation. Uh, but yeah, it's like anything. You just sort of dig into stuff and you go looking, you go sort of foraging for gold and sort of chestnuts that are things that you can bring back to the surface. That I get kind of nerdy about that kind of thing. I like finding stuff that's deep cut and blowing it up into something bigger. Like we used Astoria Carlton Ritz, who was a character from one episode of Transformers, and made her into a way more prominent thing.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'm pretty sure from what I've seen, Josh is using her in GI Joe as well. So that's a really cool thing to see get picked up, carried on.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I mean, GI Joe is pretty big for anybody my age. I'm almost 50, and growing up, man, GI Joe and then WWF wrestling. Those are probably the two biggest things in Transformers growing up. I think the first movie I cried at was the Transformers movie. So yeah, it was a huge part of my upbringing, man. So I'm really excited about how it's exploded over the last year and a half or so that Skybound's taken over the IP. It's been a lot of fun. And now it's like all coming to a culmination with G.I. Joe 1 and kind of a G.I. Joe where the Energon universe is more part of it, where I think Larry Hama and his, original G.I. Joe will continue, which still has nothing to do with the Energon, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if you could confirm that, but that's how I've seen it so
Yeah.
far. There'll be kind of two different runs, right? The OG run,
Yeah.
which will continue, and this new run, which will tie in everything that we've been doing with Transformers, Void Rivals, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so that's all Energon universe. So that's a cordoned off thing in itself, which to be fair is now quite it's a big cordon at this point because there's a bunch of titles. But yes, that's separate to the sort of classic GI Joe continuity, which has been running since the dawn of time and
Yeah.
will continue.
Yeah, yeah. No, Larry Hama is quite the creator writer, man. So that's all. I'm glad that that's continuing as well. Do you think there's going to be more of you, Dan, within the Energon universe, or has that even been talked about?
Yeah, we'll see. There's definitely conversations,
Yeah,
but I'm also I'm busy. They're busy, so
yeah.
hopefully the stars will align.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
that front.
Well, let's jump into Nightwing. I know we kind of started off with that, but how exciting, man, to be able to take over this character. I think, I'm as old as I am, right? Batman will always kind of be at the top of the echelon, but when I look at comic book fans that are half my age, Nightwing is their Batman. What Batman is to me, Nightwing is to them. So I know, man, Nightwing has got to be one of the most popular DC superheroes. So I don't know what your background was around Nightwing before this. Obviously, working with Ram V, doing some of the short stories at the back of or God, I can't even think of them.
Detective.
Yeah, exactly. Like how did you grow up reading a lot of those titles with Nightwing and whatnot? And what does that mean to be able to take over such an amazing character like that?
Yeah, I think that the bad stuff was when I did start reading comics. It was the stuff I initially gravitated towards, and also very, very hard. It's still to me, it's the sort of ideal of superheroics because I mean, also I come from a horror background, so this sort of gothic, uh, uglier city where there's clowns poisoning the water supply and uh, plants uh, that are going to eat you in the botanical garden and all that kind of stuff. Like was very much my jam, always. So I used to just read voraciously anything sort of bat related, and it wasn't super easy to get hold of American comics when I was a kid, particularly not DC ones. So I didn't read a ton of comics until I was kind of a teenager, but I had like one issue of Devin Grayson's Nightwing, which I think was her first issue, that I picked up on a trip to like Disney World as a child, and I'd read that till the stables came off, and had sort of had to figure out that I was like, oh, this is Robin. So yeah, I don't know. It's one of those characters who's always been with me. But you know the animated series, all of that stuff as well. So I'm very familiar with the character.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not that's not something I had to go away and do any research for, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. And then, having this love and passion around horror, I feel like Gotham is like the perfect city to allow a lot of these stories to come forth. So you think it's going to go kind of more into that direction for Nightwing without giving too much away, some of that more darker tone?
Yeah, I mean, I am what I am. So
Yeah.
there's a certain sensibility that's probably going to leak through. It's not my priority with the book. Um, I also don't want to be a one-trick pony where it's like, okay, well, you hand me Nightwing, so you get horror Nightwing or whatever. It's not. It's definitely not that. And we're trying to set up for a nice hefty run here. So we don't want it to be one note or one tone. And the character himself is also not that. He's
Yeah.
not as brooding. He's definitely not as sort of uh, entrenched in the shadow. But sometimes that also lets you kind of throw that contrast in him. Let him be a sort of a flicker against the misery. But also it's interesting to sort of take because now he's in Bloodhaven.
Yeah.
Bloodhaven rather than Gotham has a different tone. But that's
Hmm.
also a city that has had horrible, horrible things happen to it. It has a canonically a worse police force than Gotham does. It's more corrupt.
Yeah.
It's uglier. It's the sort of uh, red-headed stepchild of Gotham, and that it's everyone's kind of afterthought, and also got blown up by a
Yeah.
living chemical weapon about 20 years ago, and
Yeah.
still dealing with that.
Yeah. The after effects is still going on. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's incredible. Yeah, I cannot wait, man. It sounds like how far ahead are you? Like, are you already working like issue 7 and 8? Like, what does that look like, and how far ahead do you stay on top of a title like this?
Yeah, not quite 7 and 8, but yeah, about to start the second arc, the second
Nice.
6 month chunk. So yeah, as far ahead as you can get is the general hope, but that's between you and editorial, and as long as you're staying ahead of the artists in general, that's where you need to be. But
Yeah.
I'd like to be like nice and far out ahead. There's a balance with that because you also want to let you want to let there be some play between you and the art team. So you want to have that kind of thing of if they throw something into the background, you can look at it and go, oh, that's cool. Let's explore what that is and bring it to the forefront and let them kind of spark ideas and have those conversations, which is harder if you've sort of written 10 issues with before they've started drawing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then can you talk a little bit about how important with the last decade of you writing comics, that relationship between you and the artist and how important it is, that back and forth? Because as a reader, you could tell when they're not jiving, the writer and the
Yeah.
artist. You're like, I'm not sure that panel is really saying what it's supposed to be saying. Can you kind of talk about how important that is?
Yeah, I mean it's the key thing, and when you're sitting down to write a script, what you're really trying to do is inspire someone else to create something that's going to be the best possible page. So there's a pitfall, I think, of thinking if you've sat down and you've written panel one, this happens, panel two, this happens, panel three, this happens. I'm done. I've done my job. And that's not really true. What you're really trying to do is you're trying to communicate back and forth with the artist as much as possible to create something that clearly communicates on their page. Um, but yeah, it varies from artist to artist how much guidance they need, how much guidance they want. Um, it's always a little tricky. I tend to overcorrect when I don't know who's drawing something, which is something that can happen with when you're working on other people's licenses, is that they need the scripts in, they're still trying to find the artist. Yeah, I did a short story that way where I'd written this Batman 8 pager, and I'd written so much description because I was like, I have no idea if they're going to bring in someone who's brand new and might need a little and want a little guidance as to what each panel should look like. And then my editor came back and was like, "Oh, great news! John Paul Leon's going to be drawing this," and I was like, "Oh no."
You could cut that direction
That's
in half,
it.
right?
Just yeah. I was like, please, can you just ignore everything except like maybe the first line of each panel description, because what you're going to do is going to be so much better than what I've written. No doubt. And it is a beautiful story that I cherish very much. But I also have artistic collaborators that I hold very dear that I've worked with sort of time and time again. Casper Wingard, Danny. I have my kind of my ride or dies.
Right on. Now, with everything that's going on in the DC world and everything that you're working on with Skybound, possibly maybe something happening later on, is there anything on the indie creator owned side that you're working on? Maybe you can't share, but are you already working on something different in that area as well?
Yeah, definitely. It's the sort of life's all about balance, and I have definitely uh I've been working on two books for DC concurrently because I'm also doing Batman Dark Patterns, which launches in December with Hayden Sherman. He's another fantastic artist.
Oh, Hayden is incredible. Yeah,
Yeah,
incredible.
yeah, yeah. We got to finally meet and hang out a whole bunch this weekend, so that's been lovely. Um, but working on both of those, plus Destro, plus Creature from the Black Lagoon over the last year, I'm definitely ready now to get back to some creator owned stuff. So definitely gearing up for that. So I expect to see a bunch more in that kind of area probably towards the end of next year.
Okay.
But we still got the one hand six fingers
Yeah.
trade launching next month as well. So I haven't been absent from that space.
Yeah, yeah. But it's an important space to kind of always have your feet in, right? I mean, as a creator, right, you want to have that creator own.
Yeah, I mean it's where you get to fully explore, because
Hmm.
when you're doing other people's licenses, you've got a sort of responsibility to both existing fan bases and to whoever's hired you and is paying your rent. But when you're doing creator owned, you can make whatever you want, and sort of it's on you to make it work or not. So that's always kind of it's kind of the point. It's why you come into to do this kind of work to begin with.
Yeah. You have a preference one over the other?
I like both. I
Yeah.
really do like both. I'd be I don't think I'd be totally happy, at least right now, doing only one or the other. I do think eventually, I think I would be unhappy if I was only doing licensed stuff.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Now, when it comes to DC and everything they're doing outside of comic books, just out of curiosity, have you been watching the HBO series The Penguin? And I would just love your
No,
thoughts on it.
I don't have HBO next
Oh,
yet,
okay.
but I am
Yeah.
looking forward to watching it. I will say that the film The Batman was kind of one of the things that sparked the conversation as to my book that's coming out in December,
Oh,
between me and
okay.
the editor, was that she I sort of the day that came out, she texted me and was like, "Have you seen it yet?" And I was like, "No, I'm going tonight." And I went and saw it. She's like, "All right, text me when you've seen it." And as soon as it was done, I was like, "Yeah, that's the Batman I wanted." And she's like, "Yeah, I've just spoken to the like senior editors, and like they're like, yeah, go make this book." Uh, so it's not exactly the same, but just having
Yeah.
that lo-fi, gritty Gotham that's far more crime focused than is fantastical. Um, that's the version I've always really liked. So I think I am looking forward to watching the Penguin.
Yeah, yeah. Well, wait till you see the Penguin, man. It is next level craziness. It's definitely Soprano-ish. If you've ever seen the
Mm.
series The Sopranos, or
Mhm.
yeah, oh my gosh, man, it's pretty crazy. I think it's number one in the US. I think they were averaging 1.8 or almost 2 million viewers every time it releases. So, if you like the Batman, I think you're gonna really like the Penguin. It takes it to the next level. So I hope you get to see it, man. Hope you get to see it soon. It's pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Just gonna get around to it.
exactly, exactly. Yeah. So, how was New York Comic Con for you, and what was some of the highlights for Dan?
Oh God. I mean, it was fantastic. In that everyone, I haven't done a con in 2 years, so there's so many friends that I haven't seen, and co-workers that I haven't met yet, that I got to spend some real time with. But I think I slept about 4 hours a night for about 5 days, and then was on a panel, and had a table, and met probably more people than I've met in the last 2 years, between readers and professionals, and everyone. So a little overwhelmed at this point. Glad it's over, but it was great.
Did it spark anything to
You can you
do?
can you can hear how I think you can hear in my tone more than my words that I'm just sort of I've come out the other end baffled. It's like I've seen the face of God, or I've seen Cthulhu or something.
I know yesterday when we talked back and forth, you weren't sure you were going to have a voice to be able to do this morning. So I appreciate you doing it, man. It was a
Yeah,
lot, I'm
honestly,
sure.
I messed up the time yesterday. I don't normally sound like this either. This is like I don't normally sound this cool. Um, but yeah, I think if we'd done it yesterday, it might have been you might have wanted to reschedule anyway, because I
Yeah.
don't think I might not have been legible at all.
Nah, all good, all good. Now, does this spark interest in doing more cons in the US, or you're like, dude, New York was enough. We'll see you in a couple years again.
No, I definitely do want to do more. So it wasn't by design that I missed out.
Mhm.
It was more just circumstance.
Yeah.
So I do love doing cons, and I never take it for granted that people want to uh, get their book signed and want to come down and have passion for this kind of stuff because I've also did it for a long time where no one did, no one was interested. So I never take it for granted, and I always really appreciate people want to like talk and chat and that people are enjoying the books to begin with.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely you're definitely going to see a lot more of me around the US in the next year.
That's awesome, man. Especially on a title like Nightwing, I think you're going to have a lot of people
Mm.
wanting to get that issue one in front of you for a signature, right?
We'll
That's how it
see. I
works.
hope so.
Yeah, yeah. So as fans came to you, what was the one thing that they was it all Nightwing talk or was it a lot of Destro? What was the one thing that fans were bringing to you the most?
Um, Not Coffin Bound actually, which was very
Coffin
cool, which
Bound,
is my
yeah. Yep.
indie book with Danny. I mean, we were
That's
tabling
awesome.
together, so that might have had something to do with it. But that's a cool one because that was our little experiment. Um, that image a few years ago was that Danny's first American comic.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, signed quite a lot of Coffin Bound, quite a lot of Creature from the Black Lagoon,
Hmm.
quite a lot of Destro. Yeah, it's a good mix at this point, which is nice because it means I haven't just done one thing that people care about and everything else is crap.
And I was surprised. I don't think DC had any kind of early like variant for Nightwing, did they? At New York
No,
Comic Con? I thought with it
no,
being
I
so
haven't.
close to the launch, they might have done something specific just for New York Comic Con.
No, I haven't seen a physical copy yet. But I
Really?
did we did the well, probably because my I think my comics might have got sent to England. We'll see.
Yeah.
Uh, but uh, we had the Gotham panel, which was fun. So
Yeah.
that was the kind of the pre-launch promo I did.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you got to get to how much longer are you going to be in the US?
I live here now.
Oh, you live here now. I thought you were still in London. Oh, very cool. So you have to get to Midtown, right? Tomorrow and grab your comic, I guess, like everybody else.
I'm going to Everyone Comics in
Oh, okay.
Queens.
Nice.
So
Okay.
that's where I'll be from 6 o'clock.
Sweet. Well, that's exciting, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, damn, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you giving me some time, especially after an exhausting 5 days of talking. Probably the last thing you want to do is talk some more about comics. You probably need a break from it. But
It's okay. I'm a comics creator. We're all egomaniacs. So
no, I really appreciate it, man. I'm very excited to see where Nightwing goes with your
thank you.
current run. Issue one was a lot of fun, man. Loved all the action. Again, I don't want to give anything away, but there's some pretty awesome characters that are brought forth in this issue that I think people are going to have a lot of fun with. And I think they'll be surprised by the ending. And I can't wait for issue two of this current run.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Yeah, I hope people like it.
Yeah, yeah. I hope we could do this again, Dan. Appreciate your
Yeah,
time, my
absolutely.
friend. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for
Likewise.
everything. And hope you have an amazing rest of your week, my friend.
Likewise.
All
Thank you,
right.
Tom.
Talk soon.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.